This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 121. If you find yourself often overwhelmed and stressed out, I encourage you to go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/end overwhelm and watch my workshop on the 5 shifts to end overwhelm and live a more balanced and connected life as a highly sensitive woman entrepreneur. Now here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. All right, in today's episode, I want to talk about how you can really build in self-care and maybe even need to do things a wee bit different this year due to the pandemic and the holidays. Usually this time of year in my clinical practice, it is overflowing with clients because it's a typical year, no pandemic, a lot of chaos begins to happen for a lot of the families that I work with. And what I'm noticing this year is there is a shift where things seem to be a little calmer, which is awesome. I love hearing this. I love hearing what my clients are doing differently. And then in coaching, I'm also hearing how women are doing it differently this year too, and they're finding a little more peace. So I thought I would have a conversation with you today about it because next week, coming up here in the U.S., we're going to, celebrate Thanksgiving. And then I know Christmas is coming up. And I know there's so many different holidays and rituals coming up for each one of you, depending on your spiritual beliefs, depending on your heritage. And I want to honor all of those. And at the same time, really remind you, especially as a highly sensitive person, and as an adult, you can do things differently. And it's making sure you're doing it in a way that actually honors you and or your family. And you're not doing it for others under the sense of obligation or I have to type of thing. So let me back up a second. Many of the HSPs that I work with in whatever business, under whatever hat I'm wearing, more often than not, they have a trauma background. More often than not, they have family who didn't recognize their HSP traits, didn't honor those traits, were not emotionally supportive to them. They didn't, or they may still not, have really good boundaries. And so there's a lot of enmeshment, meaning crossing over and making others responsible for them. There is often a lot of times where parents, caregivers, other relatives are saying, well, you have to do these things. You're responsible for this. And what they're doing is they're projecting their stuff onto you. And one of the good things, I guess, about this pandemic is you can actually do it a lot different this year and truly blame it on the pandemic. Now, let me pause there for a second. And I also want to acknowledge those of you who have lost loved ones during this pandemic. And this may be your first holiday season without them. And I want to remind you to please take care of yourself. Seek the support wherever you may need to get it, whether that is truly with a therapist who specializes in grief counseling, if that is with family and other friends who can truly hold that space for you. Do what you need to do to support you in that space. You also have the right, if you have lost a loved one or many people to this pandemic, to not actually celebrate the way you typically celebrate. It does not mean you are not honoring those memories of the people you have lost. It means you're going to do it differently because you need to do it in a way that actually supports you. Whatever you choose is okay. I'm going to speak more to those of you who are not going through the grieving process during the holiday season. I'm talking about Some of you I know love to celebrate with family. And then there's some of you who are like, oh my gosh, we've got so much family, but we're scattered all over. And there's multiple events that we typically do. And it usually gets pretty chaotic and I get overwhelmed and exhausted due to that, right? Well, this year it's time to get creative. Maybe your holiday celebrations looks like you're going to do it virtually, meaning you're going to gather people from around the country, around the world, different parts, wherever you are, and you celebrate it via the internet, via the computer. I understand it is not the same thing as seeing people in person when you want to hug one another, when you want to just have little side conversations here and there in between, the holiday festivities, things like that. But it is what it is. And the more that we really accept this is where we are right now, it doesn't mean it's a forever, but it's like, oh, I can actually do this differently. For others of you, I know this is honestly a place where you can truly exhale because you're not having to go to multiple festivities. You're not having to go to multiple family gatherings, and you get to do it with your nuclear family, those that are truly within like your partner and or your children. And you're really excited about that. One of the biggest things, I hear from my highly sensitive clients is that holidays can feel very chaotic, and it doesn't need to be. There really can be some calm during the festivities. I know HSPs, we've got this lovely little trait that we love to do is we want harmony with anybody and everybody, and we sense what's kind of going on with other people, and we want to hold that space for other people, and we're attempting to take care of other people. But it's remembering you've got to take care of you first and foremost, otherwise you don't do anybody any good when you're overwhelmed and exhausted. So I want you to really pay attention to what do I want this year during a pandemic? If I don't feel truly safe with traveling, whether that's via the car, via the plane, whatever, then say no. No is a full and complete sentence. It doesn't mean other family members need to agree with it. If you truly do not feel safe doing this, don't. I know some family members, they are not excited about that. And they're like, well, it's not that big of a deal. Some people still believe there is no pandemic. Some people still believe that if they don't they don't have to wear a mask because it's a political thing, which has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the health of other people and them. Choose what works for you. This may be an opportunity for you to honestly assert yourself with loved ones in your life. This may be the time where you're like, I choose to no longer just do what other people tell me I need to, quote, do, because it puts my health, my well-being, or my family at risk, and I'm not willing to go there. Some of my folks that I work with, they are just, honestly, they're excited they don't have to do multiple family gatherings. They're excited they don't have to travel anywhere. Being with family or having these festivities doesn't need to be only during specific days of the year. I think anytime you get together with people that you care about or you love, that is to be celebrated because you will never, ever have that same moment ever again. It really is once in a lifetime. As I've stated before on this podcast, right, nothing in our life is guaranteed. We can plan for the future, but it doesn't mean it's going to actually happen. It doesn't mean we're going to be around. It doesn't mean, bad crap isn't going to happen, because it does and it has and it can. So it's really choosing what works for me. And if you are deciding to travel, if you are deciding to have people over to your place, and I know for some of you who live in warmer climates, you are able to have these gatherings because you can still hold them outside. For those of us who live in the colder climates, that is not necessarily the case. But whatever you end up doing, make sure you're really building in that self-care before the event, and you're building it absolutely after the event. If you need to, delegate some of those tasks you typically take on because you think, when your perfectionist part of you comes out and says, I gotta do it all. No, that's not true. If you need someone to help you set the table, if you need someone to help make certain dishes, state that you need that help. Delegate who's really good at these things. Make it a potluck versus you've got to have it all. In my family, all holiday celebrations, each relative, each family ended up bringing part of it. And it worked. It was just beautiful so that we kept the overwhelm down. It wasn't up to the host to bring make everything. Often the host would make the one part of it that needed to be cooked longer, whatever that piece was, right? But everybody else also brought something. The other thing to remember is if you've got relatives, if you have parents, if you have others in your life who are just like, well, that really stinks, you're not going to come, or that you're letting this pandemic just run everything. Remember, that's their stuff. I get they're frustrated or they're hurt or they're whatever. You can acknowledge that. But the fact of the matter is they're responsible for themselves and you are responsible for you. It's making sure that, you are also heard. The odds are you have probably, again, for most of my listeners, they have put their needs aside. Your needs matter as well. And this to me, because we don't know everything with the outcome of the pandemic, and I know many, many people, if they do get COVID, that they actually make it through, which is a beautiful thing, and that there's a vaccine that is, really showing a lot of positive results. But we still do not know how this virus will impact people long term. So it's totally okay for you to say, I'm going to push pause this year on the celebrations. It's totally okay to say, I'm going to do it virtually, or if we're able to do it outside, that's what it's going to look like. Or we're going to, sit in the car and talk to you from there while we're in the driveway, or, we're going to come up for, a couple hours and we're going to leave. Whatever works for you, whatever works for your family, it is okay. I think so much of it is asserting your needs and choosing not to feel guilty about it. Be the incredibly brave and courageous woman that you are, and know that, again, not everybody is going to like it, and that's totally okay. I don't know how many times I have disappointed and frustrated family members with some of the choices that I've made, and it's like, all right, it didn't feel necessarily good at the time when they got angry, or they said they were disappointed, or how dare I do this to them, right? It's like, I didn't do anything to you. I just stated a need or what I was going to do differently, and you didn't like it. And again, nobody died from it. The world didn't blow up from it. So it was uncomfortable for a moment, and people moved on, or they didn't. But again, it wasn't my responsibility. It's the same thing for this. If you have your own family, meaning children or other people that you are taking care of that live in your home, you got to do what's in the best interest of you and for them in the home. Other adults in your life, they can take care of themselves. They can move on or not. It really does often, though, show what they're kind of made of when they get told no. Do they stop talking to you? And if that's the worst case scenario, you'll grieve that loss, or you'll make it known to them. It's like, wow, I had no idea that by me doing this one thing, that would end our relationship. And if that's all it stood on, like I have to continuously say yes to everything you want or jump when you say jump, then to me, it's not a healthy relationship. It's a one-sided relationship. So it may bring a lot of clarity for where your relationships with family or friends really stand during this time. And some of you probably have already figured that out due to everything that's gone on since March. So please remember, take care of yourself during this holiday. Choosing calm over chaos is absolutely okay and acceptable. And doing less versus more really does take care of your own sensitivities. And it doesn't mean that you're less than or that you're weak if you choose to do it differently. It just means you want to do it in a way that really honors you, maybe honors your own little nuclear family. And all of that is okay. I think if you choose to do that for you, That's a huge step in honoring you. That to me is being much more soul-led than allowing your fears to lead you, allowing the fear of disappointing others, allowing fear to say, well, but you're not enough, allowing fear to say, well, everybody may get mad at you. And what's the worst thing about that? What's the worst possible thing that can happen? Remember, all those old stories, the things that you experienced growing up, past events are just that. They're in the past. Our mind wants to keep those fears, old hurts, old traumas, and keep bringing them forward, but they're not. You're not in that same space. This is where I am. This is the only moment that I have. And so what do I choose to do in this moment? Do I need to breathe? Do I need to just honor this is what I'm needing this time around? Do I really want to change this going forward? Do we want to create our own ritual, something very different than what my family has done? Again, allow yourself to get quiet and explore what this holiday season, this holiday coming up next week, can be for you. Or again, whatever holiday ritual that you celebrate. This could be your year of change and what that looks like. Again, we've talked so much about how 2020 is a year of change, and I think some of the change has been really crappy, and some of the change has just been profound for colleagues of mine, for the clients that I've worked with. It's brought on some clarity for many, many people that I've worked with, which has been beautiful, that they really are choosing calm over chaos and joy and thriving over depletion and overwhelm. So that choice is yours. Do what you need to do for your holiday season, and making sure that you really do build in some self-care before and after, however you decide to celebrate. And don't jump the fence. Don't jump out of your own lane. Stay in your own lane. Others can take care of themselves because they're adults, and that's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the little ones who depend on you. I'm talking about the other adults in your life. They can manage themselves. So I hope this is helpful. And there have been many topics that or conversations over these last couple months that have been brought up with some of my clients, and I think I'm going to start to address them. I don't have a bunch of people lined up for guest interviews. I've just truly slowed down in my own life during this season because I've been doing some other stuff behind the scenes that has nothing to do currently with the businesses that I'm running. It has something to do with another potential business I may end up doing in 2021. But anyways, so I'm going to do just some shorter episodes, I think, going forward this month and then the month of December. We'll see. And then I've got a few people that I'm going to chit-chat with on starting in 2021, and we'll go from there. So I hope you do have a good holiday season. I hope that you stay safe and that you and your family are well. But more than anything, I truly hope that you give yourself permission to truly take care of you and whatever that looks like for you and or your family. Until next time. To sign up for my workshop on the 5 shifts to end overwhelm and live a more balanced and connected life as a highly sensitive entrepreneur, go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/end overwhelm.